She was just standing there, 11 years old, eyes red, hands shaking, and not a single adult knew why. Except the one man in red who saw her crack before she said a word. Princess Charlotte didn't scream. She didn't run. She just whispered the kind of sentence no child should ever have to say. Please, don't let him talk to me again. And when Donald Trump stepped into the courtyard moments later, confident, dismissive, trying to finish the conversation. The guard didn't ask questions. He didn't yell. He raised his rifle, calculated the shot, and fired. Now, before we show you the exact moment, the entire palace froze. And what Charlotte said that silenced even her father, tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Because this wasn't politics. This wasn't defiance. This was the day a royal guard drew the line for a child. The light in Buckingham Palace's north courtyard didn't feel right that day. It wasn't the hour. Late afternoon had always draped the flagstones in golden hush. It wasn't the crowd, just a usual cluster of midweek tourists behind the ceremonial chain, phones tilted, voices low. It wasn't even the air, cool, clear, carrying the scent of old stone and manicured hedges. It was the stillness. That strange kind of stillness that slips in before something breaks. Sergeant Rowan Hale didn't glance up right away. At 37, with nearly 2 decades of Coldstream Guard service behind him, his posture had learned to see without looking, shoulders aligned, gaze fixed, presence calibrated like a metronome. But something shifted. His left hand, resting lightly beside his scabbard strap, twitched, not in panic, just enough to register a tremor in the air. Then he saw her. Princess Charlotte. She stood near the ceremonial chain, just past the carved limestone pillar that marked the inner royal boundary, alone. That wasn't unusual. She was known to walk the courtyard when her schedule allowed, a quiet child by nature, comfortable in familiar places. But Hale knew this post. He knew this princess, and she had never looked like that. Her coat, a dark navy wool trimmed with soft gold piping, was buttoned unevenly. Her hands were clenched tight in the fabric at her sides, not cold, not fidgeting, gripping, braced. Her chin trembled slightly, but not from wind. Her eyes, red-rimmed, unfocused, weren't scanning the crowd or watching the guards like she normally did. They were locked forward, fixed on nothing. Then, her shoulders twitched, not a flinch, not a shiver. It was a moment of collapse without movement. Rowan adjusted nothing in his posture, not his feet, not his angle, not his breath. But internally, something turned. This wasn't a child lost. This wasn't curiosity or nerves. This was a child holding in something that had already shattered her from the inside. And no one else saw it. Not the tourists. Not the aide just now appearing from the side path. Only the man in red, standing 20 feet away, trained to guard the monarchy's image. And now watching one of its youngest fold into herself like she was trying to disappear. Something was wrong, and Sergeant Rowan Hale had already begun to step away from ceremony towards something far more human. He broke protocol quietly, just one step, not dramatic, not rushed. A single, measured stride forward, enough to reduce the distance between duty and concern. Sergeant Hale's boots clicked softly on the flagstone as he closed half the space to the princess. He didn't speak right away. He let silence settle first, gently, like a blanket, not a command. Charlotte's posture didn't change. But her hands, small, pale, knotted in fabric, tightened once more. Then, without lifting her head, she spoke, not clearly, not confidently, just a cracked sentence that sounded like it had been hiding in her chest for hours. He said I wasn't behaving right. Hale's brow didn't move, but inside something did. "Ma'am," he said softly, lowering his voice the way guards are trained to when a minor royal is in visible distress. "Can you tell me who said that to you?" Charlotte's eyes flicked up for a second, not to meet his, just to confirm she was allowed to speak. Then they dropped again. "Mr. Trump." There was no anger in the name, but just wait. She swallowed, lips barely moving. "He got close. I didn't know what to do. I froze. And he She blinked rapidly and then stopped talking. Hale didn't press. He had been trained for ceremonial precision, for combat readiness, for the tension between diplomacy and defence. But this soft, breaking truth from a child, was something else. Something you responded to by not reacting too much. He bent one knee slightly, not kneeling, just lowering his line of sight to be level with hers, still upright, still royal, but reachable. "Did he touch you, Ma'am?" She shook her head quickly. "No, not that. Just, he leaned down, said I wasn't standing right, said I was making the family look bad." She paused. "He was angry." Her voice broke on the last word. "And then he said, next time I should fix my face." Hale's stomach turned, quietly, deeply, but nothing showed. "And now he's coming back." She didn't say it like a child afraid of punishment. She said it like someone remembering something already done, something she didn't know how to process. Hale didn't ask more questions. He didn't need to. The picture was already forming. Charlotte was trembling now, not crying, not collapsing, just quietly unravelling beneath layers of royal posture that shouldn't belong to a child. Her breath hitched again. "I didn't tell anyone. They'd say I was exaggerating or dramatic, or that I just didn't like him. But I swear, he scared me." Then, so softly he almost missed it, "Please, don't let him talk to me again." Hale rose to full height. His hand hovered near his chest, just above the radio clasp. One quick double tap. Silent, safeguarding code. He didn't need backup yet. But the moment had changed. He was no longer standing watch over tradition. Now he was standing guard over a truth too small for headlines, but too heavy for an 11-year-old to carry alone. The sound arrived before the man did. Heavy soles, confident stride. A rhythm that didn't belong in a courtyard, meant for ceremony. It broke the stillness like a wrong note in a hymn. Charlotte flinched before she turned. She didn't need to see him to know who it was. Donald Trump strode into view from the east side corridor, shoulders squared, coat open, tie slightly crooked in the wind. Two aides trailed him, uneasily slow, one of them visibly reaching for a comm device. Trump didn't slow. He moved past the tourist boundary without acknowledgement, brushing by the velvet rope like it was ornamental. He locked eyes on Charlotte. "There you are," he said, tone flat. "We weren't finished." Charlotte took a step backward, almost into Hale's leg. Sergeant Rowan Hale didn't blink. He moved only slightly, half a pivot, just enough to shift between the girl and the approaching man. No threat, just presence, just the line being drawn. Trump kept walking. "Out of the way," he said sharply, brushing a hand through his wind-blown hair. "She and I had a moment. I need to correct it. Politely, that's all." Hale remained exactly where he was. Calm, tall, blocking the path entirely. "Sir," Hale said, voice low but clear, "Princess Charlotte is under safeguarding protocol. You are not permitted to engage her at this time." Trump's mouth twisted. "I'm not engaging her," he said. "I'm reminding her of basic respect, something you might want to learn too." Then, louder, enough for the crowd nearby to hear. "Unbelievable! Guards thinking they can dictate who speaks to who. This country used to understand power." Charlotte's breath came faster. She didn't cry. She just clutched her sleeves and pressed herself closer to Hale's shadow. "Sir," Hale said again, firmer now, "you are breaching both protocol and space. Step back." Trump scoffed. "Or what? You're going to blink at me harder?" He took another step forward. That was enough. Hale's boot shifted subtly. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough for weight to settle on his back foot. His rifle hand firm at his side. His eyes, still fixed on Trump, no longer blinked. This was no longer ceremonial tension. It was a wall. Trump stopped, briefly. His gaze flicked down at Charlotte, then back up to Hale. "Look, she's upset. I get that. I was trying to help. You people always twist everything." Charlotte spoke then, voice small but cracked. "Don't let him near me again." Trump froze. And in that silence, the crowd, which had slowly quieted, began realizing something was off. Tourists lowered their phones. An aide glanced toward the palace entrance. Even the pigeons along the upper balustrade had gone still. "Sir," Hale said, now flatly, "you are ordered to cease movement and remain outside the child's proximity." Trump's eyes narrowed. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" "I do, sir," Hale replied evenly, "but I also know exactly who I'm protecting." Trump exhaled hard through his nose, as though the air itself had dared to disrespect him. Then one final step. Not a charge, just a challenge. "You think I'm scared of a man in costume?" Charlotte's hand pressed into Hale's coat behind him. Hale didn't answer. But something in the courtyard, something silent and ancient, began to tighten. Trump's shoes scraped forward once more, just half a pace, but enough to close the gap. That was when Hale moved. Not fast, not loud, just enough. His right hand rose, deliberately, calmly, and came to rest across the diagonal strap of his rifle, not gripping the weapon, not raising it, just touching it. Every guard in the service knew what that gesture meant. And so did anyone who'd ever been briefed by palace security. First warning, final chance. Trump's eyebrows lifted in disbelief. "Oh, you're serious," he muttered. "You're actually going to play soldier for real. You do realize this is just a child having a mood." "She is under stress," Hale said quietly, "from your presence." Trump raised his voice. "I didn't do anything. I told her to stand up straight. That's not assault. That's advice." Charlotte spoke behind Hale's elbow. "He scared me." Just 3 words. Soft but precise. And this time, they weren't whispered for safety. They were spoken to be heard. Trump laughed, but it was hollow now, nervous around the edges. "I scared you. Come on, I corrected you. Your generation can't take feedback." "Sir," Hale cut in, more forcefully now, "you are in violation of Safeguarding Statute 4.C under Royal Child Protection Guidelines. You were warned. I am now issuing a formal cease approach." Trump tilted his head back, eyes wide like he couldn't believe this was happening. "To me? You're issuing orders to me?" "I'm not issuing," Hale said. "I'm enforcing." For a moment the courtyard held its breath. One of the palace aides, watching from across the inner walkway, reached quietly for her phone. Trump gestured broadly. "This is nonsense. I'll speak to the king. You're all going to regret this when the right people see how you treated me." Then he took another step. Charlotte made a small, breathless sound and stumbled backward. And that sound, that tiny, unguarded reaction, broke something in Hale. Not anger, not pride. Duty. He slid 1 foot backward. Stance widened. Rifle strap flexed. 1 more inch. That's all it would take. Trump stared at him, chest rising. "You wouldn't." Hale's tone didn't change. "Do not make me." Trump's hand twitched. Charlotte whimpered. And the final line between power and protection was about to be crossed. It happened in half a second, maybe less. Trump's hand jerked forward, not toward Hale, not toward violence, but toward Charlotte, a reach, casual to him, commanding, a gesture that said, "I decide when this conversation ends." Charlotte flinched hard enough to trip over her own heel. Her back hit the ceremonial chain pole with a metallic clink. Her eyes flew wide. And this time, she didn't just tremble, she crumpled. "No," she gasped, her voice a high, desperate thread. "Please." She didn't finish, because Hale moved. Explosively, cleanly, without noise or warning. His rifle swept from its resting strap in one fluid arc. Calculated, trained, pure muscle memory. His boots planted wide, a backstop confirmed. Angle locked, breath held, and dash. Crack! The report shattered the courtyard like a cannon through stained glass. Tourists screamed. Phones dropped. A startled guard, 3 posts down, instinctively reached for his earpiece. Stone dust exploded 2 meters to Trump's right, just below the ornamental balustrade. An impact point trained into Hale across hundreds of drills. Deliberate, non-lethal, ceremonial warning zone. Trump froze. Mid-step, mouth half open. Hand still extended, like it had been caught in a freeze frame. Charlotte hit the ground, not from the blast, but from shock. She curled in, hands over her ears, coat pulled beneath her, like she'd collapsed into her own shadow. A silence fell, not the silence of peace, the silence of consequence. Pigeons scattered from the colonnade. The wind itself seemed to pause. Hale stood tall, rifle still diagonal, barrel lowered, no follow-up movement. His stance spoke volumes. This was not an accident. This was the line. Trump's mouth moved again, but no words came. Then finally, You fired at me." Hale didn't answer. He didn't need to. He adjusted his left foot to centre mass, anchor stance. His gaze didn't flinch. Then came the sentence. Even, calm, commanding. "You will not approach her again." Charlotte, still curled beside the pillar, lifted her head slowly. Her fingers were still pressed to her ears. Her eyes were wet, but not wild. They were focused. On him. Trump began sputtering. "You're done. You're finished. That's attempted something. I'll have you." Hale didn't flinch. The moment was sealed. This wasn't rage. This wasn't rebellion. This wasn't some rogue show of force. This was protocol, enforced by the one man still standing still, while a child fell apart and the world kept talking. And for everyone who had been watching, tourist, aide, or officer, one truth had become unshakable. That shot wasn't fired at a man. It was fired for a princess. The echo hadn't finished bouncing off the stone before the palace began to move. First, the radios. Crackling commands snapped through earpieces across 3 wings. 2 uniformed security officers turned from the North Arch and broke into a full sprint. Second, the staff. A steward near the gallery dropped her clipboard. One aide slipped on the marble, trying to pull Charlotte's medical file from her satchel. A royal coordinator gasped aloud, but no one told her to be quiet. Third, the silence. The tourists behind the ceremonial rope were frozen. Some were still filming, but their arms trembled. None of them had caught the actual moment, but everyone had heard it. The shot. And now, the aftershock. Sergeant Hale remained exactly where he had been. Rifle low, barrel still warm, posture perfect. The line he'd drawn wasn't physical anymore. It was legal, ceremonial, and absolutely final. Trump hadn't moved either. Not because he was calm, because he didn't know what to do. He'd stepped forward like he always did, expecting compliance, submission, space to speak. Now he stood in dust and silence, blinking at the guard who didn't flinch and the child who no longer looked afraid, just hollow. Then came his voice. "You saw that! He fired at me! You all saw it!" He pointed wildly. He discharged a weapon at me. One of the officers approaching raised a hand to calm him. "Sir, please remain still. We're securing the area." Trump shouted louder. "He's unhinged. He needs to be arrested. That's an attack." Charlotte, still on the ground, whispered, "He didn't attack you." No one spoke for a moment. Then Hale did. Tone controlled, measured, like reading a report from memory. Ceremonial warning shot, non-lethal. Fired in compliance with safeguarding protocol following ignored verbal commands and confirmed distress from a minor royal. The senior officer arriving nodded. He'd heard enough already. "Who gave the safeguarding confirmation?" the officer asked. Charlotte's voice was quiet but audible. "I did." The officer turned to her, his tone softening. "Princess, are you hurt?" She shook her head. Then, barely above a breath, "I was scared." Another aide was already calling for the royal medic. A second officer moved to guide the tourists out, redirecting foot traffic through the east corridor. The security perimeter shifted almost invisibly, and still, Hale hadn't moved. His rifle was slung back now, the muzzle down, his posture reset. But everyone could still feel the line he'd drawn. Not in the shot, in the reason. The courtyard, once ornamental, had become a place of reckoning. And inside the castle, higher voices had already begun to ask, who fired? Why? And who was the child afraid of? She didn't arrive with fanfare. There was no motorcade, no royal trumpet, just the click-click of fast, determined heels across palace stone. Then silence. Catherine, wind in her hair, jaw locked, eyes already scanning before the courtyard came fully into view. And then she saw it. Charlotte, on the ground, eyes red, Hands clutched into her coat sleeves like they were holding something in. And beside her, the guard, motionless, rifle low, posture steady like a barrier no one had crossed. Then Catherine saw Trump, standing just beyond the scorched impact mark on the stone, livid, waving his hands in disbelief, shouting something about overreaction and total insanity. She didn't go to him. She didn't even glance at him again. She dropped straight to one knee beside Charlotte. "Sweetheart!" Her voice cracked halfway through the word. Charlotte looked up, and for the first time since the shot, she fully broke. Tears, breathless sobs. Not performative, not theatrical, just a child who had finally reached someone safe. Catherine wrapped her arms around her and pulled her close, hand firm against the back of her head. Charlotte clung, hard, like she'd been waiting to collapse, but only once she knew it was safe to do so. Catherine looked up, not at the officers, not at the crowd, at Hale. He didn't speak, but he held her gaze, and she saw it all there, the restraint, the calculation, the choice. She stood slowly, holding Charlotte against her hip, adjusting the coat to wrap around them both. Then her voice turned, cold, controlled, and aimed with devastating precision. "What did you say to my daughter?" Trump paused, only for a second. "I didn't say anything that wasn't true," he snapped. "She was sulking, making a scene. Someone needed to say it." "You approached her alone?" Catherine asked, "without clearance?" "I was trying to help her understand. That's what men do, teach strength." Then, pointing at Hale, "Instead, I got this lunatic playing hero." Catherine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "She's 11. The words landed like a judge's gavel. "She's a child. And you cornered her, spoke down to her, scared her, and when she froze, you kept going." Trump waved a hand. "She misunderstood. These things get taken out of context. She said no, and you ignored it." Trump opened his mouth. "But she was already done with him." She turned back to Charlotte, brushing a strand of hair from her damp cheek. Then to Hale. "Did you fire?" "Yes, ma'am," Hale said calmly. "Warning shot, non-lethal, controlled angle." She nodded. No hesitation. "You were right to do it." Trump barked a laugh. "You're just going to take the word of some frozen-faced soldier with a gun and a grudge." But nobody was listening anymore, because in that moment, Catherine wasn't a duchess. She was a mother. And the only person who'd listened to her daughter in time was the man in red, who'd refused to step aside. His arrival cut through the air like the second hand of a clock striking 0. Prince William moved fast. No coat, no ceremony, no hesitation. His security detail kept pace, but just barely. One aide clutched a folded folder underarm. Another was still mid-radio call as they cleared the final colonnade into the courtyard. William's eyes went first to the child. Charlotte, wrapped in Catherine's coat. Eyes swollen, face pale. Then to the guard. Rifle low, breath steady, eyes forward. Not apologizing. Then to Trump. Red-faced, mid-sentence, hands flailing, still talking like words might make reality wait. William didn't say a word until he reached centre court. Then, flat, clipped. "Sergeant, what happened?" Hale didn't blink. "Your Royal Highness. Warning shot discharged in accordance with Child Safeguarding Protocol 4C. Verbal command ignored. Subject advanced toward distressed minor royal." William nodded, once, absorbing. "Your identification?" "Sergeant Rowan Hale, Coldstream, post 6 rotation, cleared as primary perimeter contact." Another nod. Then William turned slowly toward Trump. "Did you approach her after she asked you to stop?" Trump straightened, his expression twisting with disbelief. "I barely touched her. I said she needed to stand up straighter. She took it the wrong way. It's absurd to be punished for speaking." "She cried," William said flatly. "In public, at your approach." Trump gestured at the crowd. "She's dramatic! You know how kids are when they don't get their way." "She's not dramatic," Charlotte whispered, her voice barely audible from Catherine's arms. William froze. He turned, meeting his daughter's eyes. "Did he scare you?" Charlotte didn't hesitate. She nodded, then clearer. He leaned too close, said I wasn't behaving, said next time I'd better watch my face. The words hit differently now, because she wasn't whispering them in fear. She was repeating them with memory. William's jaw tightened, but he didn't raise his voice. He looked back at Hale. You followed training? Yes, sir. Rifle was angled away from all persons, fired into reinforced stone, 0 contact. Was there another option? Hale's eyes didn't flicker. No, sir. The child was behind me. He advanced. William stood still for a long second. Then he gave the smallest of nods. To all units, guard action is confirmed within protocol. No detainment. No disarmament. Trump's face went pale. You're siding with him? Over me? William's voice dropped. I'm siding with the child. Trump tried one last protest. You're making a mistake. But William raised a hand. To his aide, escort Mr. Trump to Chamber 9. No contact, no press, no statements. To Hale, remain on post. And then to his daughter, gently, come, let's go inside. Charlotte didn't look back at Trump, but as she walked past Hale, she slowed just slightly, her small hand brushing against the red fabric of his tunic. Not a grab, not a thank you, just contact, just presence, just truth. And in that moment, the guard had never stood taller. Inside the palace, the corridors no longer echoed with footfalls. They absorbed them. The aftermath had shifted into machinery now, quiet, exacting, relentless. In the East Wing conference room, 2 senior security officers, 1 royal aide, and a palace legal advisor reviewed the Courtyard report. Video from the Courtyard's internal CCTV was played 3 times. Once in real time, once slowed to half speed, and once paused, frame by frame. At no point did Sergeant Hale raise his rifle toward the subject. At no point did he move outside the approved perimeter. The shot, confirmed by trajectory and sound calibration, had struck exactly where he said it would. A designated ceremonial discharge stone set into the eastern courtyard wall, installed for this purpose, trained for this moment. Clear justification, the legal advisor muttered, signing the line beside Force Discharge Exception 3A. Protocol held, said the senior officer. Child response confirmed. Meanwhile, Charlotte sat in a smaller, quieter room 2 doors down. No cameras, no microphones. Just Catherine, a female physician, and 1 gentle-voiced royal counsellor. Her story didn't change, no embellishment, no hesitation. Just a girl explaining why she froze, how she tried to be polite, why she didn't speak earlier. And the phrase she repeated, not as a child mimicking something she'd heard, but as someone who lived it. He didn't yell, but he made me feel like I couldn't breathe. The physician wrote down nothing. She just nodded, listened, marked the rising pulse in her watch when Charlotte mentioned the phrase, fix your face. Across the hall, Hale stood before the command review table, back straight, helmet off, expression unreadable. You understand the weight of your action, Sergeant? Yes, sir. And you stand by it? I do, and I will. No flourish, no bravado, just truth. The officer beside the file folder didn't even confer with the others. He just stamped 1 word, cleared. No further action required. Outside, the tourists were gone. The courtyard swept. The echo of the gunshot replaced by an institutional calm that only comes when the decision has been made. And the system, for once, sided with the child. Before it was too late. By evening, the light in the courtyard had shifted again. Not gold now, amber, longer shadows, softer wind, the kind of light that makes old stone feel older. Most of the staff had cleared. Tourists were long gone. Trump had been escorted to an off-site diplomatic wing under administrative lockdown. No press had been notified, no statement released. And yet, everyone who mattered already knew. Sergeant Rowan Hale remained at post, still, not rotated off, not reassigned. Still standing, where he had stood that afternoon, beside the small scorch mark in the stone where a single bullet had told a royal courtyard what no title ever could. He hadn't asked for relief. He hadn't spoken since the review board dismissed him with a nod. He simply returned to position. Because presence, he believed, was more powerful than posture. The courtyard was nearly dark when he saw her. A figure in the upper gallery window, small, wrapped in a navy blanket, hair freshly brushed behind her ears. Charlotte! She didn't press her face to the glass. She didn't wave. She just stood there, watching, and then, gently, lifted one hand, palm open, flat against the window pane, and not a child's wave, not a gesture for cameras, just a quiet signal. I see you. I remember. You stayed. Hale didn't move, but the faintest breath, the smallest shift in his jaw, carried back across the courtyard like a vow made without words. She turned after a few moments, stepping back into the warm light of the royal apartment. Gone. Safe. And Hale returned to stillness, because the moment had passed, but the duty had not. Some threats don't come with weapons, and some protections don't need them. He hadn't fired to be noticed, he hadn't acted to be praised. He did it because someone had to stand between a child and the world, before it broke her completely, and today he had. Do you think the guard was right to fire that warning shot? Should emotional intimidation toward a royal child carry the same weight as physical harm? Let us know what you would have done in Sergeant Hale's place. We read every comment. If this story moved you, tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next Royal Guard confrontation. And if you know someone who believes tradition should protect the innocent, not silence them, share this video with them now. While you're here, choose one of the stories now showing on your screen. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with a brand new Royal Guard story.